Hey folks, Jesu Otaku here, and I recently saw Pixar's Brave. Boy did I.
It stands 12 feet tall, with razor-sharp claws. His hide littered with the weapons of fallen warriors. His face scarred with one dead eye. I drew my sword and...
Trump! Dad's leg was clean off!
Oh, that's my favourite part.
So here's one thing we gotta get out of the way real fast. I love Pixar, as in, I say I'm an anime fan, but in case I haven't made it pretty obvious with a lot of the vlogs I've been doing, I love movies in general. And a lot of my anime fandom comes from a deep love for animation. Specifically, is one of my favorite mediums to do film in. Like, there's a lot of creative things you can do with film, but in animation, you can do anything. Here in the West, we don't necessarily do anything with it. We do kind of like man-child comedy, which that's not an insult, it's just, that's a good way of putting it, because I like South Park, I used to like South Park, I guess, I like Futurama, so I like some of the man-child comedy, but that's essentially what it is. You can do comedy for, adults that's immature, or you can do children-friendly stuff, and that's about it. And that's really a shame, because animation can do anything, and we should be able to do anything with it, is my thought. And that's where a lot of my anime fandom comes from, is just that the Japanese tend to, which they have their genres, they have their things that they keep coming back to, obviously, but they've done almost everything with it at some point. As I say, I've got Beck right behind me here. That's a huge example of something that, we'd never do. That would never ever happen in the West. But there's an anime, Beck, Mongolian Chop Squad, you should watch it, I'm getting off topic. The reason I love Pixar is because they've come close to achieving that by working within the system, which I don't think that was their goal. I think their goal was just to tell good stories, and that was it. But essentially, they don't really care about this is for children and this is for adults. They just care about telling good stories, and they don't have to be edgy. They don't have to be pushing the envelope and like, ooh, this is comedy, like for adults, and it's really edgy. Like, they don't have to do that, because that's just another like tiny keyhole you're creating. Instead of stepping outside of boundaries, you're just creating new boundaries for yourself. And Pixar doesn't care about any of that, or they didn't anyway, and they just wanted to tell good stories that it just so happened like children could watch. But that said, but they're not like, for children, and I really appreciated that, and I was like, I think Pixar is opening the door for adults to appreciate animation, because they do. Like, there are now huge Pixar fans that like don't have kids, and they're like, people in their late 20s, early 30s and stuff like that, and they go see Pixar movies by themselves, because they love Pixar, and that's great. So I'm gonna get to the point here and actually talk about Brave. Sorry, I swear I am. Brave is kind of the end of an era, I think, which is sad. People are saying Cars 2 was the end for Pixar. I can see where you would get that. Cars 2 was Pixar's first genuinely bad movie. Because, they'd made like their weaker ones before that were Cars and A Bug's Life, but they weren't bad. They had not yet made a bad movie, and Cars 2 was a bad movie. And a lot of people were saying, well, that's the end of Pixar, and I wasn't ready to say that yet. I was like, okay, that was John Lasseter's baby, like, the reason Cars was even made in the first place is because of John Lasseter's big road trip that he went on, and his obsession with cars. And let the man, he's done so much good for Disney and for animation in the West. Let him have his pet project. It's not that good, but let him have it, right? And, sorry, excuse me. That's fine. If he has to make a shitty sequel to that a lot of people went to, it made them a lot of money. So I was like, okay, whatever, let's hand wave off that, let's just say Cars is its own thing, and ignore, the other projects going on at Pixar they're pouring all this time into. And I thought one of those was Brave. I saw the teaser, the very first teaser for Brave, and you guys, I have never been so excited for a Pixar film. I'm not shitting you. Like, I really wasn't this excited about any other Pixar movie, because I saw the horse, and I saw the beautiful textures. Like, I don't know if you guys know this, they rewrote their entire animation program for this movie. Like, they changed, I think the base program that they were working with. I don't exactly what went into it. I'm not much of a tech mind, but I got the broad strokes. And basically, in order to make this film look the way it did, they had to change a lot of their processes. And it looks, that's one thing I can say about Brave, absolutely. It looks amazing. It was just, there are bits in this movie that just make you want to cry just from looking at them. And I mean that in a positive way, cry like, oh, it's so beautiful. It's other movies you could say that, but never mind. Other things. Let's get back on topic. Anyway, but when I first saw that teaser trailer, and I saw the horse, and I saw Mordu, which is this big demon bear in the movie, I was excited because, to me, I thought Pixar was attempting to do something a little dark. Because Pixar has done a lot of things, a lot of wonderful things, and, but one thing they haven't really broached yet is slightly dark film, and even Disney has done that now. Which, you say what you want about Disney's image and how far they stretch it, or absolutely refuse to stretch it. They've done some dark stuff before, and, there are people that have written, essays on how much fucked up shit is in some Disney movies. Pixar hasn't. They've done mature things, but nothing that was just sort of raw. They've done some more smoothed over stuff that is dark when you really think about it. The implied loss of the baby in the beginning of Up. I don't want to make you guys cry, but I mean that and that kind of thing. In Toy Story 3, they're all about to get melted down in the. That's dark, but they have not done a big fairy tale with a giant demon bear being hunted down by Scots. They haven't done that yet. And I was like, oh my god, Pixar is going to do this. I am so excited to see what they're going to do with this, because those kind of films have their merits. And I was like, is this going to be Pixar's Hunchback, only without the talking gargoyles, And, because I have nothing but respect for Hunchback of Notre Dame, except for the goddamn gargoyles in that movie, but oh man, just Disney made that movie. I had hope for them when they saw that. But, okay, we're gonna get to the point here. I'm such a tangential motherfucker, I know. I saw the movie itself, and the more material came out for it, the more I began to get concerned, because I didn't know what this movie was about. I don't know if you guys have seen later trailers, but I was like, this looks really epic, but I still have no clue what it's about. All I'm getting is the princess who doesn't want to be a princess thing, which is old as dirt, and there's nothing special about it. But this is Pixar. Surely they're doing something special with it, but I didn't know what the plot was. And they hid it for a reason. And so here I'm going to get to the point of this vlog. I am not going to spoil this movie for you, but if you absolutely don't want to know anything whatsoever about the movie before going in, which you probably shouldn't, because you're going to be disappointed, I think it's best to temper your expectations. I'm not going to spoil anything for you, but I'm going to imply some things, because they haven't revealed anything about the plot in their footage. So what are you gonna do? How do you discuss this movie without spoiling what they clearly don't want you to know about this movie, which is bears. This movie has a lot of bears. This is not over. Bears! There's so many bears in this movie. I can't really say why, but my point is, I thought Brave was going to be an epic. And what Brave is, it's not a bad movie, but it is a very small movie. It is perhaps it pains me to say it. This is why I think this is the end of an era for Pixar, because plot-wise, writing-wise, there is nothing special about this movie. It's heartbreaking to me to say that, but it is not as good and not as special as How to Train Your Dragon. It's that low. It's like a very well executed DreamWorks movie is what this is. And it breaks my heart to say that, but it's true. And all the stuff you see in the trailers and the footage of her riding on the horse and scaling mountains and stuff like that, and the implied darkness, pretty much all of that is from the first third of the movie. The second 2/3 are, like that part where she scales the mountain, that's not a big climactic plot point, that's just where we're first, meeting her and going, she's feisty! And it never comes back. This is definitely, the most shoddily plotted, which Cars 2, it's a lot of fucking around, but it did have a plot, and it was very clearly laid out. Brave is sort of scraping along, like, okay, now this happens, and, you know, we know this is going to happen too, but we're going to get there slowly, because we're kind of trying to pad for time, because there's not a whole lot. It's a very small movie. Very little happens in this. It is a lot of it's misunderstandings, the movie. So here's the part where that's a little bit spoilery. Besides, I just said bears. Disney made this movie already. Disney Animation Studios made this movie. It was called... It's not the exact same movie. It doesn't have the exact same plot, but there are similarities here. It was called Brother Bear. I know. I'm just going to let that sink in for you guys. And here's the real bitch of it. This is how bad the plot of Brave is. Or how... It's not bad. I can't say there's nothing in Brave that's bad. And I'm just... You know what? I'm going to spoil my score for it, like, right up front. This is 2.5 stars of a movie. And you know, if that is what matters to you, I guess. But more specifically, this... this movie is not bad, but there's just not anything great in it. And to talk briefly about, like, when I say Brother Bear had a better plot than Brave does, which is terrible. Here's the difference. Brother Bear, if you've seen it, has not a bad premise, has kind of an interesting premise that you could do really neat things with if you weren't Disney Animation Studios of the late 2000s that was struggling to not be a giant corporate beast, you know, like all their best artists had left because it was such a hellhole. Yeah. It's so depressing. I loved animation. It's hard to talk about this stuff. But here's the problem. But Brother Bear actually had a pretty good setup. The execution was the problem. In fact, if you go back and watch Disney's Brother Bear, watch the first 10 minutes or so, everything before Kenai turns into a bear. The moment at which the Aurora Borealis opens up and the spirits come down and, you know, he gets turned into a bear. Everything before that is not just not a bad movie, is a good movie. With the exception, maybe, of the opening song, because it's preachy and annoying. And nobody likes the preachy, annoying pop songs. But ignoring the fact that the song that opens the movie is kind of obnoxious. And that's just if you listen to the lyrics. Pretend you don't know the lyrics, and then even then, and it sounds epic. The first 10 minutes of Brother Bear is a good movie. It's not even just not bad. It's a good movie. And, go back and watch it. Like, stop right there, and then imagine the rest of the movie as something else. And you will be surprised at how much, like, potential that idea had and how much they shat the bed on it. Brave is the opposite. Brave has the crappiest plot to deal with. This is every cliche you have ever seen in any Disney movie ever. Compounded on top of each other, mixed with the whole, base Hollywood, everybody's misunderstanding everybody thing, where they move the plot along through misunderstandings. And it's so cliche-filled, it's so cliche-ridden, that you can tell exactly, and I know this is not just me, because I could hear the people in the theater talking about it around me. As I left the theater, there were people that were like, man, I didn't really, you know, like they were trying to struggle for it. The kids loved it, but the adults were like, oh man, I didn't really, you know. But, you know, my point is, you know what's going to happen 5 minutes away from whatever point in the movie you're watching. You're watching right here, you know what's going to happen in 5 minutes. And you know exactly what's the exact event. Now, a good movie, so I don't know, Wall-E, something like that, you know how it's going to end. You know where it's going to go, but you don't know how it's going to get there. And the suspense is, you know, chilling in certain parts of the movie, you know, or you really feel for the characters every step of the way, even though you know things are going to turn out alright, you know. So I'm not saying, like, it shouldn't be predictable. It is a family film. But every event is predictable. You know what's going to happen in 5 minutes, and you're waiting for it to get there. And it's agonizing, because you know what's going to happen. You know, why are they wasting your time? Then it happens. Okay, thank God. And then they immediately just paint you a picture of what has to happen next. It is really obvious. They telegraph it. That's it. They telegraph it to you. And it's like, oh no, well, okay, when's it gonna happen? Alright, waiting, okay, yeah. You guys have already realized this. Like, how have you not realized this is the solution to your problem and this is where you have to go next? And a lot of it is, you know, Merida and company at point A, and then they have to get to point B, but they don't realize it yet, and the audience does, and they're just waiting, and it's padded out so thick, and it's a small movie. The plot here is tiny. And so, I guess, I mean, that's really all I can say, is this is the opposite of Brother Bear, that the plot is so shitty, and what saves the movie is the execution. It's how beautiful it is.